a mutilated statue of ecstasy, a wounded happiness that cannot live,
Mm-hmm.
brief felicity, brief happiness of
Mm-hmm.
mind or sense. And then what is it? What happens to it? It's thrown by the world power to her body slave. The world power's body slave is the human being, our form.
Mm-hmm.
And it's thrown by the world power to its body slave, to her body slave. Now, what is thrown to it? Well, it's a wounded happiness that cannot live. It's a brief joy or bliss or felicity of mind or sense that is thrown by the world power to her body slave. Or, so then he gives us what else it might be, or a simulacrum of enforced delight. A simulacrum is a slight, unreal semblance of something, a superficial likeness.
Okay.
Super, yeah, a superficial likeness. And what is that superficial likeness? Interesting, this last line. In the seraglios of ignorance. A seraglio is the harem of a Muslim house or palace where the concubines and the wives are secluded.
Oh,
Very powerful.
okay.
So, but it's the seraglios here of ignorance, capital I for ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
The absence of the divine eye of perception, he said, which gives us the sight of the supramental truth. It is the non-perceiving principle in our consciousness, as opposed to the truth perceiving conscious vision and knowledge. So powerful. So that's what the ignorance is. We've been through that. And now he's going to continue on with this image to us for all.
For all we have acquired soon loses worth, an old disvalued credit in time's bank, imperfections check drawn on the inconscient.
For all we have acquired soon loses worth. Because what is worth to us? If we acquire something, we go out and we hunt for uh, what I want to say, ancient things, and we buy them, or we buy new furniture, we buy new things, and everything that we acquire soon loses worth. I have seen that in my own life. We bought this beautiful Japanese kimono, wedding kimono. And over 20 years, the silk and everything is starting to crumble. So there's a perfect example of what he's telling us, that everything we've acquired soon loses worth. And what is it like? It's like an old disvalued or a no value credit in Times Bank. And then it's like a check that's imperfect, drawn on the inconscient. Imperfections check, drawn on the inconscient.
So the message is basically to get away from the materialistic life, in short.
Oh, that's for sure. That is absolutely correct. Because we see that this world power plays with us, and we're living in the ignorance, and therefore even these highest raptures that time can give us are just imitations of beatitudes that are ungrasped, or they're mutilated statues of ecstasy. They're a wounded happiness, they're a brief felicity, that is thrown to us by the world power, to us, our body slave, or even a simulacrum, superficial likeness of enforced delight. Enforced delight. Interesting line, because it's a superficial likeness of delight that is enforced
Mhm.
in the seraglios of ignorance. So then he continues on, for all we have acquired soon loses worth. And he goes on. And then there's still more. And
Sure.
let's begin with an inconsequence.
And in consequence, dogs every effort made, and chaos waits on every cosmos formed. In each success, a seed of failure lurks.
Yeah, it's success. In
Suc-
each success.
Success.
There's a joke by this old comedian from England, Benny Hill, and he says, nothing succeeds like a canary without teeth. Nothing sucks seeds like a canary without teeth. So in each success, so now you will never make that uh, mistake
Yeah.
again in pronunciation. In each success, a seed of failure lurks. You see, that's really something powerful.
Mhm.
And chaos even waits on every cosmos formed. Well, this is obviously Canto 5, when Ashwapati Sri Aurobindo is seeing all these things. He's seeing that chaos is waiting on every cosmos. Cosmos, this is not just our solar system, every cosmos formed. And in each success, a seed of failure lurks. And that seed can grow or it can just be there like something in ambush. And now he's going to talk about what Ashwapati has seen. He saw the doubtfulness.
Yeah, and Narad sir, just one little clarification.
Yes.
So it's the line says, and in consequence, dogs every effort made. So dogs here is basically the human form, is it?
No, dogs here is a different definition. It means following like a dog.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, especially with the hostile intent.
okay.
So I have a book here
Mhm.
called The Hound of Heaven, in which the hound dogs this man to find heaven.
Okay.
So he follows him, or he actually hounds him,
Mhm.
attracts him.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a nice new definition of dogs. Huh? Good.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. He saw the doubtfulness of all things here, the incertitude of man's proud, confident thought, the transience of the achievements of his force.
Well, this is. It seems very negative, and in
Mhm.
a way, it is a little bit depressing to us to have to read these things. But Ashwapati is seeing this with the divine's eye, and he's
Mhm.
seeing the doubtfulness of all things that are here on earth,
Mhm.
not the doubtfulness, not the doubtfulness of the spiritual planes or the overmind or the supermind, just all things here. He
Okay.
saw the doubtfulness of all things here. The incertitude. Incertitude is interesting because Sri Aurobindo writes to Amal about
Mhm.
this. And the dictionary tells us incertitude is doubt or absence of confidence. Yes, it's uncertainty, surely. That's another synonym. Very good. And he sees the doubtfulness of everything here on earth and the uncertainty of man's proud, confident thought. Ah, powerful. The transience of the achievements of his force. Now, that's again seemingly negative because
Mm.
it's the impermanence. Transience is fleeting, huh? Impermanent. The transience of the achievements of his force. And so man achieves this great thing and then he dies and it falls
Mm.
apart. So, anyway, the transience of the achievements of his man's force. But now we have a new phase coming in, a thinking being.
A thinking being in in an unthinking world, an island in the sea of the unknown. He's a smallness trying to be great, an animal with some instinct of a god.
Now,
His
an
Mhm.
animal with some instincts, plural.
Instincts, yeah, instincts of a god. Yeah.
Yes,
His life a story too common to be told. His deeds a number summing up to naught. His consciousness a torch lit to be quenched. His hope a star above a cradle and grave.
cradle, cradle.
Cradle, cradle,
A,
cradle.
yeah, a sound. So this sounds very negative, but it's also true that this is most of humanity.
Mhm,
This really is a picture of mankind, that he is somehow a thinking being, but
mhm,
he's in an unthinking world. And he's like an island in the sea of the unknown. And then, in addition to that, he is a smallness trying to be great. He is an animal with some instincts of a god. So you see, he's an animal, and yet he has some instincts of a god. But his life is a story too common to be told. His deeds are a number summing up to nothing. And his consciousness is a torch that is lit to be quenched, put out, like you quench a
mhm.
fire. And then his hope is what? Simply a star above a cradle and grave. Pretty dark look at man. But now we have to go to these next two words, two lines.
Sure. And yet, a greater destiny may be his, for the eternal spirit is his truth.
I think it's eternal.
Eternal, sorry. Eternal, eternal, eternal.
And we have to go a little bit more,
Okay,
at least another four lines.
sure. He can recreate himself and all around and fashion new the world in which he lives. He, ignorant, is the knower beyond time. He is the self above nature, above fate.
So now Sri Aurobindo has given us this big relief because
Mhm,
a greater destiny may be his, even and yet a greater destiny may be his. Why? For the eternal spirit is his truth. So the truth of all of us is that the eternal spirit is the consciousness above the mind, the Atman or self, which is always in oneness with the divine. And that is from Letters on Yoga, Sri Aurobindo. What then can man do? Well, he can recreate himself, and he can recreate everything all around. He can even fashion new the world in which he lives. So we see there in those 4 lines, there are 3 lines that start with the word he.
Mhm.
He, ignorant, is what? He's the knower beyond time. He is the self above nature, above fate. And read slowly and make me feel exactly what we discussed. I think we discussed it fairly thoroughly today. We,
We
un-
did.
we understand what Sri Aurobindo is telling us. So, begin.
Here, even the highest rapture time can give is a mimicry of ungrasped beatitudes, a mutilated statue of ecstasy, with wounded happiness that cannot live, brief felicity of mind or sense, thrown by the world power to her body slave, or a simulacrum of enforced delight in the seraglios of
No, Seraglio, no G sound. G is
Seraglio,
silent. Seraglios,
in the seraglios of ignorance. For all we have acquired soon loses worth, an old disvalued credit in time's bank, imperfections check drawn on the inconscient. And in consequence dogs every effort made, and chaos waits on every cosmos formed. In each success a seed of failure lurks. He saw the doubtfulness of all things here, the incertitude of man's proud confident thought, the transience of the achievements of his force. A thinking being in an unthinking world, an island in the sea of the unknown. He is a smallness trying to be great, an animal with some instincts of a god. Is
I
it
think those 2 lines could be better. Huh? He is a smallness trying to be great, an animal with some instincts of a god. Try that.
he is a smallness trying to be great,
Good.
an animal with some instincts of a god. His life a story too common to be told. His deeds a number summing up to naught. His consciousness a torch lit to be quenched. His hope a star, a bow, a, a cradle and grave.
Good.
Yet a greater destiny may be his, and yet a greater destiny may be his, for the eternal spirit is his truth. He can recreate himself and all around and fashion new the world in which he lives. He, ignorant, is the knower beyond time. He is the self above nature, above fate.
A good reading,
Right.
improvement. But
Yeah.
let's look at some of the capitalizations. Knower, time, self, nature, fate. In 2 lines, 5 capitals. Amazing. See how much Sri Aurobindo is giving us.
Yes.
Because he says the self is our self-existent being. And that's from the essays on the Gita. And he says in his letters on yoga, he says the self is being, not a being. The self is being, not a being. By self is meant the conscious, essential existence, one in all. Good. Okay, so see you next week.
Sure.
Very
Thank you.
good. Namaste.
Namaste.